So if you're giving feedback, positive, negative, celebrating the wins together, recognizing when it missed the mark, talking about it in real time, they're going to be more receptive. And also asking them, hey, can you give me some feedback? How am I doing? Because then that gives you a chance to model what receiving feedback looks like. And ultimately, all of this is about increasing trust in the partnership with your assistant.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Empire Life podcast. I'm Allison Ramsey, your host. And at Empire Life, we mentor female founders in scaling their online empires. And this is the Empire Life podcast. And today we have Amber L. Gray as our special guest. And she's the founder and CEO of Trusty Oak, which is a US-based virtual assistant firm where leaders get back 5+ hours while learning how to delegate effectively. And I'll hand it over to her to intro herself a little bit more.
Thanks so much, Allison. Yes, we are in the business of helping people get things off their plate. I started the company out of a need for myself to find better work-life balance and not burn myself out. And so thought, you know what, instead of just solving this problem for myself, I'd really love to create work opportunities that are more flexible for people all over. And so launched in 2015, and now we have around 60 virtual assistants. I was the first virtual assistant when I started, but now we've grown, and last year was our first year with a 7-figure revenue number. So we're climbing and hoping to continue that momentum as we go into the next year too.
Wow, that's a huge milestone. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We're celebrating you too. That's incredible.
Yeah,
wow.
it's one of those, I think we all put that number in our head, like that would be the one. And so you think I remember thinking I could do that in 2 years. I think I could do that. And it took me 8, but that's okay because I learned so much along the way, and still have big plans to keep it going.
Yeah, so we actually started around that time too, at the end of 2015. And I can't believe it's coming up on almost 10 years, huh?
Yeah, it's
for
wild.
both of us. Yeah,
Time
it's
flies.
wild.
Yeah.
I was trying to calculate the other day. Someone asked me, but like, how many years total have you been in business? Like from your first official company? It's like, I think 15, because I started in 2008, like the first official LLC. But I want to dive right in and ask you about what kind of challenges you've overcome in Trusty Oak. It could be about, we're going to dive, if you're listening to this at the beginning, we're going to dive way more into delegation and burnout, which are huge topics that come up with both of our clients and in our fields. I'm wondering if they relate to that or if something personal you want to share.
Yeah, well, there's been, there's a long list of challenges I could talk about, but more recently, this year, I've really struggled in like this mental fog a little bit of like, okay, like I mentioned, we hit this really big milestone number last year, and I wanted to keep that momentum going, go bigger, go to 1.5, maybe 1.4. I was really looking to keep growing, and to be transparent about it, we didn't see that kind of growth. We've held the line. I've been calling this a deep roots year because I feel like we have done a lot of growing in, towards our values, our purpose, like some of those things that really matter for long-term success, but it's not really showing in our Trusty Oak on the, the top part of the tree of things. And a lot of that has been for me, just kind of like I'm learning as I go. I did not start a business before 2015. I was an employee. I didn't go to college. I was a pharmacy technician for 11 years. I wasn't even in the business space and using a computer for a lot of things. So I've had to learn a lot and learn it really quickly. And once I got to this new level, it was sort of like, okay, now what? How do I continue to do this? And we've been pretty dependent on referrals, which is amazing to be able to grow a business like that from referrals. But I realize now I need to learn more about marketing, sales strategies, addressing culture whenever you've got all of these rapid growth things, lots of things moving around at once. And so for me this year, the biggest challenge to overcome was really inside me and my own mental health, but also in not giving up whenever things weren't going like I wanted them to. And what I learned in that challenge was that I needed to double down on my commitment to delegate. And I mean, that's the thing I talk about is delegation. I really, I'm a huge proponent for it, but even for myself, it's something that I have to constantly work on developing that skill. And I realized this year that I could delegate more and give myself time to think, because that's something that I think leaders don't have enough time to do. We're making decisions so quickly in these transition points in life. And sometimes that isn't enough time. We need to be able to really step back and realize, okay, how does this connect to my bigger picture goal? And so I had to have trusted people in place to take the business where I wanted to go so that I could step back and do that. And it was like a fog lifted whenever I was able to just take some time to let my mind roam around on the problems and to figure things out. And now I'm feeling motivated again and still only working about 1 day a week in the business. And the rest of the days, it's all about strategy and creating content and, really upping my game on the marketing side of things.
Those are great strategies. I love everything that you said there because I have also noticed when you give yourself that space, that time to think, that you allow for creativity. And I was listening to a new audiobook called The Laws of Human Nature, and it's incredible. He was also talking about that space, well, being able to take a step back and then look at the big picture. We allow for more ideas and more different avenues to come to us to then be able to decide, instead of, okay, I just see this one clear path and I don't really have the time to think much deeper about it. I'm choosing that one. Sometimes that works out, but sometimes in hindsight, as we get more experienced, right, as you're talking about, and more money is coming in and we have more responsibilities with all these people on our team, it makes a lot of difference to take that time and the space. And I think too, especially what I've seen in a lot of my clients and even myself, I struggle with is not feeling guilty that I'm not doing anything. I think that could be a misconception that you are doing something if you allow that space, because that's when great ideas or new ideas, new avenues, new ways of doing things, and maybe you've never seen that online, that you try it and it works.
I love what you're saying about that, because that is really describing what happened to me this year, because I was finding myself doing busy work because I felt like I need to be doing something. I'm not doing anything to make the business better and grow. And what am I supposed to do with all this time? I've delegated some things and I have time. And I found myself doing the kind of the dopamine hit thing where it's like, what's on Slack, what's on email. And, I was just sort of like scattered and not really being effective. And I didn't want to waste time and not work. But I realized actually that's what I needed to do, was to take more walks, spend some time in thought, listen to more audiobooks. All of that stuff is really powerful for us when we have the time and space to do it. And that is work for business owners. It's an intellectual sport for us, is the way I see it. And so if we have some time to think,
Yes.
that's actually good work to be doing.
Yes, and I'm thankful I'm with a partner, or my husband respects that a lot. He knows he's quote unquote doing something.
Likewise.
And
Yeah.
yes, that it's not like you have to be busy all the time. And I've definitely caught myself doing that too. I'll give a good example. Like, we have a really successful blog, and that attracts most of the visitors, which is like in the billions to our website, is mostly to the blog. And we have right now, I think, 20,000 unapproved comments. And it just goes up like every day. It goes up by maybe 10,000. And I have now hired somebody. Yeah, it's great. It's like mind-blowing to even think about.
That is mind-blowing.
I've hired somebody to help me with that, because I noticed I was doing that every time I got a free moment, is going in and improving comments. And like you said, is a dopamine hit, because there's a lot of really positive affirmational comments, if that's the word. And I get a lot of joy in it. And I can, though, like letting that go and realizing, if I'm paying someone to do it, I don't need to do it. I don't need to keep tabs on her doing it. She can let me know at the end of the month how many she approved, and she takes a screenshot and sends that to me towards the end of the month for me to pay her for it. And I can go back and I can read those comments, or I can comment on them myself
Mm-hmm.
if I felt inclined to. There's also a person on my team who answers a lot of the comments as well. And I mean, a lot of the blog comments, like they
Mm-hmm.
reply on after they approve it. So that's a perfect example, but it's still, I am so like, I'm tricking my mind that every time I get a free moment, I still think I need to go and do that, or I need to go and check it. Like, is she really doing them? And that's just a whole process of letting it go, or how is she answering them? Because we tend, I will speak from experience. I tend to think, oh, I'm going to do it a little better, but that's not always the truth. If I train an expert, which we have, I think I counted about 6 experts on our team right now, and we're always hiring more people, that they often will do it better than I can, especially if I'm in a
Mm-hmm.
rush and I'm like, I just need to get, 60 blog comments approved all right now. And it's not joyous. Even if I tell myself that it's joyous, it's not super joyous for me to sit down and do that. Like you said, it's not giving space to then think creatively, brainstorm, strategize.
I think we sometimes forget how important that work is. It's easy to see the value of those tactical things that have to be done day to day, but there's also this stuff that's a little bit harder to quantify and that's so valuable. Thinking time.
It is. I would love for somebody to help me manage my emails because that's one thing I still kind of feel that I need to personally go in and manage them. Like right now
Mm-hmm.
for our podcast that we're talking on, I get about 3 applications a day, which is incredible. But that is back and forth of, okay, now you fill out the application and I looked over it and you're a good fit or you're not a good fit. And then I give them the booking link. But all that's like little micro time, right, throughout
Mm-hmm.
the day. And like you said, I'm always thinking, well, how can I offload or how can I delegate that better? Is that worth? And I know that that's worth delegating.
Yeah, I mean, we have to decide what we're doing with that free time, and that's sometimes the challenge like that we're talking about here. But delegating those are lower level tasks. Those aren't revenue generating. Those aren't strategic. Those are necessary things for the business operations, but those are definitely tasks to be delegated so that you can focus on the high value work that either billable time or something that is really showcasing your expertise and putting your unique talent to play because there's something that only you can do and it's not approving blog comments.
Yes. You would think that that's easy to tell yourself, but it's just one of those things. It's like such a mindset shift to not be busy, especially in American culture. Like that's a badge
Mm-hmm.
of honor that I have so much work to do. I'm so busy.
Yeah, I'm thinking of there was a client that told us that she's a consultant and she's shared that it's sort of a badge of, I think she might have used that phrase, a badge of honor to have an assistant because that means, oh, you're so busy that you need an assistant. So that's actually like a status sign in some ways. And I think that, a lot of people think of an assistant as a luxury and like, oh, I've made it, I've got an assistant. But the reality is that if you can start utilizing an assistant before you think you need one, or that it's like you've made it and you're in that luxury state, if we ever get there, it really is impactful and a way to reach your goals. Because that for me, I mean, I was the first VA, but I started hiring VAs right away. I was delegating my own marketing, a lot of the things that I knew I wouldn't have time to do because I needed to go pound the pavement, as they say. And I was out there networking, making connections. I was, new business owner. No one knew about me. So I needed to do that. And there were other things that needed to be done on the tech side of things, which I was capable of, but much better, much smarter move for me to delegate that, even when I was small and didn't really have a lot of revenue to be able to do that. But I was trading my time for that person's time, and it worked really well to be able to move things faster than I would have had I tried to do it all myself.
Yes, so that was a huge lesson that I learned in the first 2 companies. I tried to do it all myself. And
Yeah.
my second company actually had a co-founder, and they were also within the same mindset of we don't really need that. We can do that ourselves. We can bootstrap everything. And
Hmm.
taking that experience into Empire Life was like, okay, I'm going to have a mentor or mentors as I proceed through this business. Even from the beginning, I'm going to try to find a great VA. I don't know what that looks like because I've never had one. Instead of like entering a new universe,
Hmm.
and I would love to have a house manager in the future who's helping me to delegate different kind of services to make sure that they get paid and they get tipped and are treated
Hmm.
well. And it's just there's
Absolutely.
so many, it's like you said about the VA or an assistant is like one step towards then making a new goal.
Yeah, we free up time to do something bigger, and it's, we're able to go bigger every time, and our goals are going to change as we level up, and really the way we think. That mindset is the biggest part about delegation. If we don't have the right mindset about it, it is natural for us to want to get that dopamine hit. Like our brains are actually working against us because there's the dopamine thing, but there's also when you're task switching, you're getting stuck on things. If you're, oh, that only takes me 2 minutes to do, but now you've distracted yourself from this other thing. And when you're going back and forth, you're really losing a lot of time that is hard for us to even really realize. We all have days where we look up and go, I had 2 meetings on my calendar, but what did I do today? Because, that's the reason for that is because a lot of times we are switching tasks too frequently. And it's we can't be productive that way. And so the more you can reduce the times you have to switch tasks, that's where real productivity is going to come in and really become powerful for you.
That's very difficult for me. I think that I can do all the things at once and have all the balls up in the air, and I definitely need to remind myself of that. The task switching. I've heard about that before, and I try to time block as best I can
Mm-hmm.
with say some days being like more extroverted and some days being more introverted, which is like introverted task of looking at the internal team and how's everybody doing? Is everyone doing
Mm-hmm.
what they're supposed to? And having internal communication or any kind of admin tasks that need to be handled. And the extroverted days, like client meetings and podcast recordings. And, but I still catch myself doing reels. I have a person on my team who's a social media manager, but I still feel like I need to do some reels. And I
I,
don't
I
really, but
I do it too. I do it
you
too.
do.
Yeah, we have someone that does all of that for Trusty Oak, but then I have my own account, and I thought, well, I should make something too, and it just seems easier if I do it right now because I have a vision for what I want. And so yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's not easy. That's why so many of us struggle with it. It is, we can find little ways to justify keeping things like they are, but when you have a big vision for your future, you've got big goals, this is necessary to get there. And so we have to start letting go of what's comfortable and literally letting go task too.
Yes. Well, every Sunday I'm not allowed. Well, that I personally have like a social detox, social media online detox day. So I don't check my email. And there's people on my team who are looking at things even on Sunday, so they could potentially handle it, or they know that I'm not going to be online on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that allows me to maybe even slightly carry it into Monday or roll into
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday even. And I all of a sudden as I get better at it, I sometimes forget, oh, I haven't been on social media for like 3 days. I probably should I could like check, Facebook for a few minutes. So I think it's a muscle that we need to work on.
I totally agree. Not an easy one to flex, but we've got to work on it.
It's not an easy one for sure. And do you have a morning routine, Amber?
I
Curious.
do. This is something I'm pretty nerdy about, at least I think I am. I feel like it's gotten kind of excessive, but it works for me and it really has made such a difference. It includes a Notion template. I don't know if you're familiar or use
Yes, I
Notion, the
love
app Notion.
Notion.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of it. Gotten more comfortable in it, particularly for personal use. I don't use it as much for work, but I have it on my iPad, so it's like this is my personal journal and, just tracker of sorts, and it's different from my laptop, so it makes it a little bit easier to have that physical separation for me. But I have a template where I'm tracking all these things, my sleep. I don't drink alcohol, so I'm always, tracking how many days that I haven't been drinking, exercises that I need to do, whether I went to the chiropractor, et cetera. And I'm setting intentions and I'm writing what I'm grateful for. And then I might journal a little bit about what's happening that day. And sometimes I'll revisit it. I revisit it in the evening where I'm updating, how I was feeling in the evening and whatever else might have happened, and try to throw some pictures in there. And for me, just having a little bit of having a tracker, it sounds like kind of, I guess, constraining it to some people. But for me, it's helpful because I can better understand why I'm feeling a certain way. If it's, maybe I need to look at my trends, like, okay, did I have good sleep for the last few weeks? If maybe that's why I'm not feeling 100%, or, whatever. I can kind of look back and read more into what's been going on in my life and realize, oh, okay, that's not something I should keep doing. It's not, I can see that it's producing a different kind of result than what I'm looking for. So for me, the morning routine is about a couple of hours of, taking it slow, really getting my head right, walking with my dog, really lightweight stuff, but also making sure I know what my plan is for today. Intentions like, I'm going to be fully present for a podcast interview. And I'm in a wedding later today and I have a best woman speech. And so it's like, today is my
Wow.
extrovert day all the way. I had a
Yeah.
town hall with the virtual assistants earlier. And so those days I need to feel a certain way. And so
Yes.
taking that time this morning really made a big difference for me.
About what time do you wake up, or do you need to wake up to get a lot of those things in?
Yeah, usually about 6:15. My goal is to be at my desk no later than 9, which I know sounds very luxurious for a lot of people, but again, the power of delegation to be able to come into things and be ready to work and feel like I've had my time before jumping in. We have a daily huddle with the team at 10:13 a.m. So I've got plenty of time to kind of get my head right before I jump into meetings. And I do also limit the days that I'm having meetings. Usually on Tuesday, it's a Zoom block all the way down my calendar,
Yeah.
but then the other days are free to do these other things.
Yeah, right now on Tuesday and Thursday, I love your idea about the one day a week of really working in the business and leaving a lot of space for
Yeah.
brainstorming, creativity, and the things you need to get done for you, wellness, chiropractor visits.
Mm-hmm.
We just tried ozone therapy, and that's
Oh,
been really
what is that?
interesting. It's where, so it was for my daughter. So I personally tried it, but it was really had a really good lasting effect for her. They first you get the, what is that called? Saline into your
Okay.
veins, and then the they drop the bag, and the bag fills with your blood, and
Okay.
then they infuse ozone, like O3, into the bag.
Oh,
So, and then they shake it a little bit. So it's like it changes color a little bit. It just looks really vibrant. And then you can also get additions, like pushes, they call it, into the bag, like magnesium
yeah.
or trace minerals, vitamin C, depending on your specific need. And and that's it. And then you get the blood put back into you.
Wow, that's cool. I do there's a place called Restore Hyper Wellness where I do
Yeah, I
IV
think they offer that.
infusions. Yeah, okay.
I
Yeah,
think I'm
cry.
pretty sure that they offer the ozone.
Oh, they
I
may.
remember hearing about that.
Yeah. Well, every now and then I'll get an IV if I'm feeling kind of low, like energy and stuff. I'll do that, or I'll do cryotherapy sometimes. And I love the infrared sauna. I try to get in there once a week where I just sweat,
Amazing.
and I put an audiobook on and suffer for 30 minutes and then I feel amazing.
Do you have one in your house, or you go somewhere?
No, no, Restore has one. And
Oh,
so,
nice.
yeah, and so
Okay.
I can just, yeah, you can rent it out for, the hour or whatever. So just getting on the schedule.
That is so great. you rent it out. Okay.
Yeah,
It's
so
not
you pay
necessarily
for
like in your membership, but or
yeah,
you can rent.
it is part of the membership. It's
Okay.
not, I guess renting is probably the wrong way to say it, but it's part of the membership, and I just book and say this is reserved for me for
That's
this period.
incredible.
Yeah.
I have a goal of making, well, actually, we've already started the ball rolling of making, and I know it sounds like really extra, but I tend to be kind of extra on a
Me
lot
too.
of things. We're making a spa room in our house, and I just kind of started the ball rolling with I got a rug and nice chair and some art, and I would like to eventually put a sauna in there and maybe sound bowls and learn
Mm.
learn how to do sound bowls. I've done them a few times before. I don't know exactly how to do them, but I would love to do that in the morning and maybe have a person in the future when we have some more expendable income. We had a person coming to do some kind of like massage therapy to our house at one
Mm.
point, and we need to find another massage therapist. I would like to have a table there to have like a massage therapist on staff for
I love
my
it.
family. So these are all it's the ball is rolling and it's going to happen, but it's I'm not putting a lot of pressure on it. Just kind of as things unfold.
Yeah. No, I love all of that stuff. Like I'm a little extra too, I guess, because I'm drawn to trying those things. I read something recently about the salt floats. The float, it's like a float bath where you can feel weightless, like in the Dead Sea, but you can go
Wow,
do it in Austin or wherever they have these little
very
pods.
cool.
You can go do it. So
Hmm.
I've looked into it. I think I want to try that. So I
Yeah,
don't
you'll
know.
have to
These
let
are
me
all
know
little,
what you think.
yeah, I will. Yeah, it's just little ways to take care of ourselves and get like take care of the mental health as well as our bodies. But I feel like that's primary. We're going to be more effective if we can
Yes.
be well.
Yeah, and as people scale, I think they have to look at that because health is wealth, and if you feel good, you're going to tend to be able to be more productive, a better leader. And if you don't look at your health and you're in pain, it's hard not to become bitter or resentful, easily angered.
Spiral.
Yeah, it's a spiral effect. And that brings me to the next question about like how do you feel like you handle resistance when it comes up for you?
A lot of the things we've talked about, I would say, just getting in the right headspace. But also, I'm a big fan of this concept from Ryan Holiday. He's got a book called The Obstacle is the Way. It's Stoicism at its root, but essentially believing that things that are in my way, an obstacle in my path, is actually there to guide me in the right direction. It's part of the story. It's, not something that I should despise, but really look at it from what can I learn, and how is the best way to get around this or over this, or maybe I need to take a different path altogether. So I try to view resistance as a gift and really look for at least some kind of lesson in it, and maybe a redirection in some cases.
All of that is so true. I mean, I try to tell myself this too shall pass, or the only way on the other side is through, like
Mm,
to go through it and figure out what needs to happen, and that it can only get better from here. I can only learn from this. And I feel like that comes back to the mindset that we were talking about.
it's so much of what we do, even though we think so much about what we're actually doing, but there's more to us than what we're doing with our hands, with our mouths, all the things we bring to the world. There's just a lot going on inside too. And so we need to find ways to manage that and to understand it, and to really just to have eyes on what's happening inside and why we're doing certain things. So asking a lot of questions, for like looking internal, maybe more internal than a lot of people are comfortable with. But for me, it's been helpful just to better understand what I really want and why I'm doing something. Because oftentimes I'll realize, hey, this isn't even in a line with the big picture of where you're going. So stop making such a big deal out of something.
Oh, that's so true. I was reading something recently about how our feelings, when we analyze our feelings, it disempowers them in a way. we were having a
Mm-hmm.
strong feeling about, or let's say anger, we're feeling angry about something, when we analyze and ask ourselves those questions, or the inner work, like you were
Mm-hmm.
saying, like why did this make me angry? Is there something about this person that I find off-putting? And why do I find that off-putting? And that kind of disarms all of the feelings we might be having in that moment, to take a
Yeah,
step back. And
it's good.
yeah, it's really great. It's definitely something I do. And I think it helps people to stay more grounded or calm. I don't know if it's necessarily compartmentalizing. I wouldn't say that, because I think a person's still
Mm.
dealing with it. You're analyzing it more so, and not letting it have not letting it like take over your whole day. Because I remember I used to see comments sometimes that weren't the most positive on social media, and sometimes that would affect me for the next 3 hours.
I get that. Yeah. But it's like I feel like what we're talking about is mindfulness, honestly. It's,
Yeah,
it's just being mindful of what we're doing, thinking, feeling, and using that, like you said, harnessing it to move forward and to really achieve more. I've never been that type of person until probably more recently. I mentioned not drinking alcohol. I'm almost to the year mark in
it's amazing.
2 weeks, I think. Uh, I didn't really set out to be, oh, let me quit drinking. I was just doing it as an experiment for 3 months to be able to run a half marathon. I thought, let me see how this helps my body if I also cut this out. And so I did that, but I got injured and wasn't able to complete my training and the race. But I thought, well, I'll at least keep this part of the commitment. And then when I got to the end of the 3 months, I realized how great I was feeling. And I was using an app called Reframe that was teaching me about mindfulness. Yeah, it's called Reframe
Mm-hmm.
app. And I'd never been exposed to that before. I've actually never really seen a therapist or anything like that. And so this was sort of like my therapist in a pocket, I guess. And it was helping me learn about this. And the more I did it, the better I felt, and benefits kept coming. And so I decided to just do it indefinitely. So I don't know if it's a forever thing for me, but right now it's working for me. I feel so much better and more aware, and have a better memory of, the conversations I have, and just feel more connected to the people in my life now.
Wow. I mean, I have a lot to say about alcohols. I grew up with some alcoholics in my family, and a lot of addiction around me in the neighborhood that I grew
Mm-hmm.
up in, and in my house, which a lot of people don't know about me unless they listen to a lot of my content. But
Mm-hmm.
I started to understand well, we all know it's a coping mechanism, and it's so numbing. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to feel numbed out. I don't, I used to think, oh, my head, I have so many ideas. And I didn't understand really what a grateful thing that is, that I am to have so many just buzzing. My head is constantly thinking about new ideas, and I don't need to shut that off, because, like you said, then if we're trying to escape or numb ourselves out with something, alcohol
Mm-hmm.
being one of the go-tos, that
Mm-hmm.
we're not as present, we're not connected with the people that are our clients, or it affects all the areas of our life. It's also harder to work out. I feel more tired the next day. And I've had for a long time that I didn't drink during the week. It's been
Mm-hmm.
like a rule for me for, like even since college. And I
That's
would
great.
only have a few drinks on the weekend. I didn't really drink in high school because I was so worried that I was going to become addicted, like I
Mm-hmm.
saw a lot of people do in my community that I grew up in. And I think now it's maybe once every 2 weeks or something. Sometimes I forget
That's
that
good.
I even didn't, that I haven't fully gone off of it. I keep saying I might because I feel, what is this? I think as people become more successful, something that I've noticed for myself, that I start to question, what am I gaining from this?
Exactly. And for me, when I took it out, I started realizing benefits that I didn't know I could have without it. And one of the biggest thing, the benefit for me was actually during the day, I was experiencing physical anxiety at times. I had a like talking about the ideas. I'm like that too, and I love my ideas. I don't want to shut that down. I like that I have a lot of creative thoughts, and I feel like solving problems makes me happy. But I can also ruminate on things. Like, you I think you were talking about something similar earlier, but I sometimes would read an email and then it would just be spinning in my head for the next few hours or whatever. And so now I have more control over that. And it's sort of a thing that I didn't realize alcohol was affecting that. So drinking in the evenings was affecting the way I showed up during the day when I wasn't drinking, but it was still changing the way my brain functioned. And so yeah, there's a lot to unpack in that whenever you
Wow.
do want to cut back or quit. Reframe app is great. I have a promo code I could share if that's of interest, but get you a free month of it or whatever. But I've been doing it now more than the year that I've quit drinking. I did it for a while just as a cutback because they have an option where you can just tracking alone.
Nice.
If you're somebody that needs to cut back, then yeah, it works really well.
Yes, I mean, I think my body, I also give myself grace because of the alcoholism within my bloodline that
Mm-hmm.
it's I've read is in your DNA, and I actually crave it every now and then. I think the more I abstain, the less it happens. But I also give myself a lot of grace when that happens. Like that's
Yeah,
not even my fault. There's nothing wrong with that. But I can still choose how I'm going to respond to it.
absolutely. I love it.
Yeah, we could go into that for a long time. What are the top three tips do you think? I want to shift a little bit to delegating of when you hire VAs or business associates. What do you think people need to keep in mind or walk away with understanding?
For me, it is about aligning on values. So obviously you want to find people that have a certain skill set for the role that you're hiring for. You need to make sure they have the availability. There are a lot of those very important pieces to the puzzle, but the core thing for me is core values. And when we're interviewing, we're actually starting out with our stating what our core values are, asking our candidates to share what that means to them and tell us a story about how they demonstrated it. And we do that before we even get into what's your experience with, managing social media or all of the other things that we might delegate. So I would say make sure that you can align on that first, align on values. Each of us have our own values. And so if you can define them in writing and be able to, use those as a guide for the questions, if you're interviewing someone, if you're doing a direct hire, that's great. The other thing that I would say, you asked for three tips, but I think one other part is if you're considering hiring an assistant or anyone else versus going with an agency, one of the ways that an agency can help with that, and obviously I'm biased in this because we do, I run an agency, but it builds a trust bridge, because that's the thing that I think a lot of leaders are afraid of is, well, how do I know if I can trust this person, particularly a remote worker they may not ever see in person? It may feel uncomfortable or like not secure. Those kinds of things are really important. So if you can use an agency, there's a little bit of a bridge, or maybe it's a referral from someone you already trust. So looking for a way to create that or to find the trust bridge between you and particular candidates can be really powerful as well. And then lastly, like really, again, back to the skill set, you really want to test them as much as you can. People can say they know how to do certain things, but ask for examples. Require a written assessment of some kind. We have an assessment where we're asking questions about how they problem solve. So we're getting to see how they would solve problems, but we're also gauging how well is their written communication, because that's critical for this role as well. So those would be the top three ways that I would approach hiring any kind of candidate for either a VA or another business role.
Those are all amazing tips and strategies for that. I didn't even think about making some kind of questionnaire with how they would problem solve. And
Mm-hmm.
that also tests for their written communication. That's just brilliant.
Yeah, and one additional little tip would be to use Grammarly to go check those answers for plagiarism, because we have caught people that were
Mm.
applying that did that too, where they would just Google our question They would copy and paste and put it in, and we would find it. It's like, okay, well, we know we don't need to move forward with that candidate because they used it. But Grammarly has plagiarism detection. So nice
Amazing.
little additional checkpoint.
Yeah, and also probably they might use Chat GPT or Jasper, some kind of AI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and those I honestly don't know if Grammarly can detect plagiarism in that sense. I don't know how ChatGPT produces the content. I would assume that in some cases it's going to be plagiarized, but yeah, I'm not sure how that works.
I would think
Still,
so. Yeah,
yeah,
because it's still somehow from the internet,
right,
I
right.
would think. And Amber L. Gray, I love your name that you're incorporating the L.
Thank you.
Uh,
There's a Broadway actress named Amber Gray, so I'm trying to get my Google juice for Amber L. Gray instead of Amber
it's
Gray. So
really great.
she's owning it out there. She's doing a great job on Broadway.
I understand. There's an Allison Ramsey architect that's doing an
I
incredible
think I saw
job.
that when I Googled
Yeah,
you.
did you? Yeah, like go her, that she has great SEO. And a few times we've succumbed or gotten above her on SEO, but she's just doing amazing. Before we hop off, what do you think are the three things to keep in mind when you're starting to delegate?
The number one thing is to prepare before delegation, because a lot of, you might be on one end of a spectrum. You're either holding on to all of it and don't want to let it go, or you're ready to get rid of it and you just dump it over to someone. That is not necessarily going to help you. And so becoming really aware of what you need. You don't have to have all of it documented. Make a loom, a video screen recording showing someone how you do the thing. You don't have to have it so buttoned up and perfect, but know what you need, first of all, and work together with the person that you're hiring to understand their quirks. Like, what are their communication style? What's their work style? What are some ways that you can support each other? Because an assistant, even though, we might think of an assistant as someone that is just supposed to take the things we give them and not question, they're actually a really great accountability partner. If you say, I have been skipping lunch for a lot of days here, and they might notice, okay, well, I'm going to make sure we protect your lunch hour to make sure you eat and take care of your body first. So there are a lot of ways a VA can be your accountability partner too. So I would definitely say align on what you need, communicate clearly with that person to understand how you can work well with them, and start working on yourself and how to communicate your expectations. Give feedback frequently. Don't be afraid to give critical feedback. And I guess that would be the third thing, is really focusing on giving feedback all the time instead of waiting until something goes wrong and then feeling nervous and uncomfortable about approaching them to say, hey, this missed the mark. So if you're giving feedback, positive, negative, celebrating the wins together, recognizing when it missed the mark, talking about it in real time, they're going to be more receptive. And also asking them, hey, can you give me some feedback? How am I doing? Because then that gives you a chance to model what receiving feedback looks like. And ultimately, all of this is about increasing trust in the partnership with your assistant. So those are the big things for me.
Those are amazing. And I do that with my team. A lot of positive wins and a lot of more, I guess, critical feedback,
Mm-hmm.
or it's still positive in a way. I try to be as kind as and supportive as possible. Like we just hired a writer on the team a few months ago, and she was starting some sentences with but in that, or like and or but.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a writer by any means, even though I'm a best-selling author. And I was like, it just doesn't look quite right, and we want it to be really polished and professional. So I needed to communicate more, like don't start sentences with and or but, because that just shows us as more polished and
Mm-hmm.
professional and better communicators. It was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize. And because we have seen that on a lot of blogs, because you're trying to make it more personal, like it's a conversation. But
Mm-hmm.
I personally want it to be very professional.
Yeah. Well, Grammarly can help with that too.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah,
I don't know
that's
if
what
she
I've
has
done a
that.
lot when I've worked with someone that shared something with me that didn't have the grammar like I wanted. I've got Grammarly loaded in, so I see all the red squiggle lines, and I know that there's some mistakes that would be easy to correct. And the way I can give that feedback is just say, "Hey, great tool, free option available to you. Try Grammarly, and you'll be able to capture all this stuff." And so sometimes giving feedback is also teaching. And I'm a big fan of a James Clear quote that says that if the trick to receiving feedback is to view it as a gift, and it really is a gift because we need others' perspectives to better understand ourselves. That inward stuff we were talking about earlier only gets you
Yes,
so
it's
far.
a
You
gift.
still also need some outside perspective too.
Yeah, so it was so great having you on today, Amber.
Thank you
Thank you
so
for
much.
being
I've
here.
enjoyed it. Good conversation.